knowledge with us about auctions tonight. So thank you for Juan, thank you for joining, Andrew. Excited to have you tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Juan, you want me to start a little bit with?
Yeah. Well, let me.
And then you want to talk a little bit about.
You know, why don't I kind of introduce you to the group? Give a little bit of my background. I'll introduce you, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Sure.
So, my name is Juan Loya. I am a residential mortgage lender with Homebridge Financial. I've been a mortgage lender for about 25 years. Personally, I've helped thousands of people get into homes, fulfill their American dream of owning a home, and I've had great success with that. And in my journey, I began as a real estate investor. I began buying houses, fixing them up, and then selling them. And I did fairly well with that until I had the pleasure of meeting my friends at Chicago REIA, Andrew Holmes and the group, and I really started to change the way I looked at real estate investing. Rather than buying a property, fixing it, and selling it, I decided to buy properties, fix them, and build a real estate portfolio to create long-term wealth and most importantly, create a cash flow, revenue stream for my family, so that at some point in time, I don't necessarily have to continue doing my 9-to-5 job. I can phase myself out. So following the teachings of Chicago REIA and the teachings of Andrew, I went out into the marketplace to go look for properties, and I really tried to keep three main focuses in mind. And my most important pieces in any property that I look at is my equity position. I want to know that I have sufficient equity in the home. I want to know that it has the proper debt coverage ratio, or DCR, and I want to make sure that it has sufficient cash flow for what I need. And in a relatively short period of time, I've had the good fortune of building I started building a pretty decent portfolio, where in the last 12 months, I've been able to accumulate 12 properties that in the process, once they're all settled, I will have been able to buy, fix, rent, and recapitalize, get all of my money out of these properties, and establish a monthly cash flow of almost $6,000 a month. And I've done that in a very short period of time. And I was able to accomplish that simply because I followed the method that was taught to me at Chicago REIA by Andrew and Rahul and the group. So with that said, I'd like to give a very warm welcome and a great introduction to our friend Andrew, who has really broken this system down into very simple steps, so that I've been able to implement and achieve great success. And I look forward to what I'm going to learn tonight. We had a similar presentation last night. I picked up a few great nuggets, but I've got my pad and paper ready to go. So with no further ado, Andrew, welcome.
Juan, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. So welcome, everybody. And today we're going to talk about auctions. If you guys are not familiar with Hugo and ChicagoDealVault, as well as Chicago REIA. Chicago REIA is the largest association of real estate investors, not only at this point in Chicago, but around the United States and Canada now. And basically what our goal is that we want to bring relevant topics, people who are active in the marketplace, people like Juan Loya, who are in the business of real estate as a mortgage broker. But not only that, they're not just telling you what you should do, but they do not just do as I preach, but they actually live the message that they're preaching trying to encourage everybody else to basically get investing. Kind of the topic we're going to talk about today is going to be about auctions, and we'll kind of have a chance to go through a few different things. So I'll kind of just cover the basic types of auctions to begin with, and then we'll jump into how do you exactly participate with the auctions and where are the biggest opportunities. So if you guys have a piece of paper, or if you don't, grab a piece of paper. That way this process will kind of make sense, because I have some visual aids and some slides we can go through, yet it's going to be easier as I talk through them. If you can just kind of write it down point by point, it'll kind of make a little bit more logical sense. So having said that, whenever we talk about auctions, a lot of times people have heard about the sheriff's sales, the Cook County auctions, or they have heard about the online auctions. So I want to kind of show a slide really quickly, and I think this will probably make things clear. So what happens with a property in Chicago or in Illinois, we live in a judiciary state. And what that means is that if you are a homeowner, if you own a rental property, you own a commercial property, it really doesn't matter. If you own any sort of real estate, if for whatever reason you cannot make the payments, the bank has to follow a process through which they foreclose on the property. That means they go through a process through the court system in whatever county the property is located in, and then as that thing comes to an end, now you have a few choices at that point. You can basically, so what happens is the bank is trying to take the property back. So the bank does not own a property. When you go to a Chase Mortgage, when you go to Homebridge, you go to Juan to get your mortgage on a rental property or a home you live in, they don't own the property. You are the homeowner of the property. What happens is they're basically giving you a loan, and you're giving them a mortgage. That means they're creating a cloud on title. That is what happens. So you're the homeowner of the property. So what happens is, let's say the homeowner is 30 days late. At that point, you're going to get calls from the bank. You're going to get calls. You're going to start getting FedEx envelopes, UPS envelopes that, hey, listen, your mortgage is late. What can we do? How can we cure it? So on and so forth. Then the people are going to get 60 days late if that is not fixed. Then it's going to be 90 days late. Some point around this time, about 90 days or so, the bank is going to start a foreclosure action, also known as a Latin word, which is called lis pendens. So that means that you are being sued because you have not performed according to your obligation, that being the mortgage. Now, at this point, you may not have made the payments for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. It really doesn't matter. But still, you're the owner of that property. Nobody can basically just say, hey, listen, you haven't made the payments, so you got to move out. That's not how it works, right? You're the owner of the property. They have to go through the court process to be able to get the property back. So at some point, what's going to happen is the homeowner might say, well, they might go to an attorney and say, well, I'm going to declare bankruptcy. Okay, you can declare bankruptcy. That is a protection that you're given. But all that's going to do at this point is it may delay the foreclosure a little bit. It's not going to stop the foreclosure. So all it's going to do is it's going to bring everything to a halt, and then it'll recontinue after 30, 60 days, depending on what type of bankruptcy it is, so on and so forth. What the bank is basically doing is taking it through the court process to a end place, which is the auction, which is called the sheriff's sale in Illinois, or some places call it the trustee sale, but all means the same thing. So this is the traditional auction. If you've ever seen an older Western type of movie, in those movies, they have the attorney standing on the court steps, calling all people, and they're kind of auctioning off the farm. It's no different today than it was done last 50, 60, 100 years ago. It's the exact same process. Only thing is we're in a colder climate. So now in Chicago, there are about 100 to 150 houses that go to auction every single day. Chicago meaning Cook County. Now, DuPage County has 2 dates for auctions every single week. There are 2 times when the auctions are held, Tuesdays and Thursdays. In Lake County, it's 1 day. Kane County, Will County, each of these counties have an auction date at a specific time where the auction is held. In Cook County, auctions happen all 5 days, all working days of the week, and there's an auction at judicial sales, which is at 10:30. There's another auction at 11:30. There's another auction at 12 o'clock. There's another one at 1 o'clock, and there's one at 2:30. So the reason there are 5 different things, it's Cook County. So in Cook County, everything is done differently. And so the biggest auction in the morning is always the judicial sales auction. Now, for today's purposes, this is not important, and the nuances are not important. What we want you to get is an overview and where are the opportunities. So this is the thing that most people are familiar with. The second thing a lot of people may have heard about is websites like auction.com, websites like, let me see if I can pull up. So auction.com is one of the bigger websites that does that holds auctions. Now these auctions, so there's 2 types of auctions. There's one auction that happens when the bank forecloses on the property. This is the homeowner is still owns the property, and they take it to sheriff's sale at this point where my clicker is. And at that point, what happens is that there's a room, you show up there, and anybody is allowed to bid. There's nobody that can be restricted from bidding. It is open to the public. And at that time, they'll say 1212 16th Street, case number 18CH 224. Going once, going twice, 3 times, gone. And what happens is about 95% of properties nobody ends up bidding on them, and they end up becoming the bank's property. So that's the first time that the bank actually owns the property. So that's this place right here. So that's the first auction. The second auction may be held. So after the bank owns the property, it's called an REO, or real estate owned. And at that point, they have 2 ways of disposing of the property. They can put it on the open MLS for everybody to bid on, or they can put it on a auction site like auction.com being one of them. Auction.com is one. There's another one. It's called XOM is another one. There's another one called Realty Bid. So let's just say if we go here and we put Chicago, Illinois, right? What it's going to do is it's going to basically start giving you all the properties. These 99% times they're going to be all properties that are going to be owned by the bank, and they're being sold off. And just please understand, just because a property is on the auction, it does not mean that it is a good deal. This is really, really, really important. In fact, most properties that show up at Cook County auction or Sheriff's auction, 95% of them go back, nobody bids on them, and they become the bank's property. Because why? Because they are not really good deals, or not people are not interested in them. Trust me, good deals in a market like today, and in most markets, even in 2008, 9, 10, 11, good deals were being bid on because people understand it's a great deal and they want to basically try to buy that property. So now, does that mean that you don't have opportunity? You have a tremendous opportunity. With auctions, you just have to understand. And a lot of times people get scared of auctions because they feel, oh my God, I have to have all cash. I have to know everything in the world to buy safely at auctions. You do not. Hence, you're attending the webinar today. So we're going to talk about kind of different types of auctions. So let me go back to my slide. So when we talk about sheriff sales, and this is something really, really important, just understand a sheriff sale or a county, whenever a county is selling the property, it may be vacant or it may be occupied. People may be living in it. Whenever you go buy at the sheriff sale, they're not making any guarantees, any warranties whatsoever at all. You have to have all cash at the time of a sheriff sale. This we're talking about specifically at a sheriff sale. If it's an REO auction, which is a bank-owned property, these auctions generally are much, much, much safer. You have many, many more protections that you get whenever you're buying a property from a bank that already owns the property. The big difference between a bank-owned property versus a sheriff's sale property is that at a sheriff's sale, let's say you have two mortgages on a property. You have mortgage number one, which is with Chase Bank. Chase Bank gave you a mortgage on a property for $100,000. And then you have a second bank from Bank of Nebraska, right? And that mortgage is for $50,000. So now you have lien number one, which is Chase, and lien number two, which is from Bank of Nebraska. Doesn't matter when the mortgages were originated. For some reason, you cannot pay on the mortgages, and you stop payment. And the Bank of Nebraska starts their mortgage process before Chase starts their process. So let's say they start their process 90 days from now. Chase takes their sweet time. They file it a little bit later, or something the paperwork isn't complete. So what's going to happen is Chase's mortgage is going to go to foreclosure after the mortgage from Bank of Nebraska. Bank of Nebraska, even though they're a second lien holder in the property, they're going to get to the auction first. Now, it doesn't matter who gets to the auction first. What matters is which lien do you buy. So let's just say Juan is an investor and he's going to the auction. And this is the most dangerous and the most important part about a sheriff's sale. So he gets to the auction, they'll read it something like this. It'll go, case number 17CH262. What does that mean? 17 always stands for the year. CH is the code designated for Chancery Court. That's who handles a foreclosure case, the Chancery division of the court system. And then it'll have a 2234, whatever the number is, that's the file number. So when they read the case number, that's how they read that. And a lot of times they'll just read the address. Now, if you go there and you're like, well, that's the property I want to buy, just understand, they're not saying whether the auction, at the time of auction, whether they're selling mortgage number one, which is lien number one, or whether you're buying lien number two. They're just selling a lien. So if it's something that is a second lien that you buy, or the lien is bad, there's some problems with that particular lien, and if you buy it at the sheriff's sale, guess what happens? You're stuck with it. So if you paid, you're like, oh my God, I got this property for $50,000, and the property's worth $200,000. I mean, you may be jumping for joy, but guess what? You just bought the lien from Nebraska Bank. Now what happens is you're the rightful owner of the property. The problem is this, subject to satisfaction of the first lien. And the first lien was the Chase lien. So that's something a little bit technical. If you get a bit confused, there's nothing to be scared of. If you're going to the 3-day, we'll discuss this in much, much, much more detail and explain this entire process. But just understand one thing. When you're buying from the sheriff's sale, the first thing is always important is to make sure what lien you're buying. If you want to own the house, you want to buy lien number one, which is the first person that created a lien on the property. That's the one you want to buy. And that's where a lot of mistakes are made, because that process is not easy. The title search is not something that is easy. And so people get very confused and very scared. So some of you might be thinking, well, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to the sheriff's sale and then get my hand burnt. And if you've never done this before, and if you don't have help, I would suggest you first educate yourself before you do that. But there's a bigger opportunity than sheriff's sales. And that's what I want to kind of share, that even before. So if you guys aren't familiar with ChicagoDealVault, ChicagoDealVault was something that was put together by Hugo and his team, and we all use it. And the reason it was put together was there's really no singular place you can go to and have access to all the off-market deals. And what Hugo did was, so what I used to do was we used to send people to the courthouse every single day of the week to all different courthouses, and they would gather all the cases, the probate cases, the pre-foreclosure cases, upcoming auctions, everything on an Excel sheet. I mean, imagine, so I'll give you an example. With pre-foreclosures, well, I guess not. So let me log in again. With pre-foreclosures right now, there's about 30-some thousand pre-foreclosures that exist right now, there we go, 30,980 pre-foreclosures that are there in the Chicagoland area. So in the 7 counties of Chicago, there are 30,000 plus cases that exist. Imagine having all of that data in an Excel sheet and trying to make sense of it. So when Hugo came up with this was something that we discussed in Mastery. And then Hugo was like, oh my God, I can totally put a really comprehensive platform together for people so that they have access to this at the click of a button. I mean, instantaneously, you have access to this. And why is this important for every single real estate investor? See, right now, if you're buying a property from the MLS, even if you get a discount on a distressed property in the MLS, the average discount is about 29%. What does that mean? That if the property is worth $100,000, you're buying the property for $69,000. So after, if you do $15,000 in work, $20,000 in work, what are you left with? You're not left with a lot of margin. That doesn't mean MLS doesn't have great deals. The hidden deals, the deals that nobody else has access to, nobody sees, that's where there's a lot more opportunity. Hence the reason for a webinar like this. So we were talking about auctions, right? So a lot of people will look at the auction list and get very excited. So let me show you guys an example of that. If I go up here, if I go to, how do I get rid of this? So if I go to auction.com and if I put, let's say, I put buy, bank owned, and I'm going to put foreclosure sales, right? So if I go to and put foreclosure sales, and then I put a filter on it, and I'm going to filter it down by, so this is Cook County. I want to be in Cook County. I want to see all the ones in Cook County. And then I want to look at in-person auction. So there we go. So it's going to give you 655 properties. Now, what do? How do you make sense of any of this mess? See, this is very, very confusing. So this, as an example, I'll pull this one up, the one on Dante, right? It's November 7th is when this property is going to be going to auction at 10:30. So this is going to be the judicial sales auction. So this website gives you a lot of data here. If you want to just look up, if you don't have access to, every single person on the webinar should have access to Hugo's system, which is DealVault, because all this will do for you is it'll give you the upcoming auctions. But the problem is it doesn't give you any other info. So how do we use this? Imagine this. Imagine if you could intercept a property before it ended up at auction, before people like me or before people like Juan, before people like Hugo could bid on it. The bigger opportunity is before the auction. Why? Because you have access to thousands of properties that have a lot of equity in them. I'll give you guys an example. So let's just say, so what the system does is the types of off-market deals that are available is it has probates, it has pre-foreclosures, upcoming auctions, bank-owned properties, vacant properties, and wholesale deals. So let's start with upcoming auctions. So if I go to upcoming auctions, what it's going to show me is there are 2,574 properties that are coming up for auction. I mean, imagine the number in the next 35 to 45 days, right? So this first search is done for you. You don't have to go through 30,000 properties to search which ones are coming up. The next thing would be is that which properties, and then you can do a search even by auction date. What date are they coming up? So what is coming up within the next week? You can just put that, put your criteria there, and boom, hit search and narrow it down by that to know. Now, somebody like us, so there are two types of properties that are going to go to auction. There are properties that are going to be upside down, which means they're going to end up being a short sale to be able to buy the property. There's no equity in the property. There's not much money. The owner owes $230,000 and the property is only worth $200,000. So those properties are great, yet those are not the hottest and the best deals. The best deals are always properties that have a lot of equity in them. So I want to show you guys something that you would think, why would a homeowner that has over 50% equity in a property let it go to auction? What happens is this, guys. A lot of times when people get in distress, what happens is they don't know what to do, and so they do nothing. We have all had situations where we get scared, we don't know what to do, and so we absolutely do nothing, right? We just freeze. And that's what happens to a lot of people. And here's the numbers, because this will kind of give you an idea of how many properties. So look at the 2,500 some number of people that are going to be foreclosed on, that are going to end up at auction in the next 45 days in Chicago. And then I just put one filter, which is give me all the properties that have 50% or more equity in them that are going to come up in that period of time. So let me see if I can get this to cooperate. There we go. So now that got it reduced down to 284 properties. Imagine that, right? You suddenly, at the click of a button, you go from having 2,000 deals to give me the properties that are the best of the best. Give me the properties that have a huge amount of equity. So let me pick a property here. Okay, let's pick this one, right? So this is a property which is a property in Elgin. It's on Briarwood Drive. And here's the cool part, right? What the system does for you is not only will it pull up kind of where the map of the property is, it will overlay all the data, the foreclosure summary, who the current owners are, who's the attorney that's handling the transaction. And if you go here and hit on the current owner, what it's going to try to do is it's going to try to find out if there is any relevant information about the homeowner that exists. See, what this does is it puts a humongously powerful tool at your fingertips, which gives you a huge advantage. Imagine being able to go to Mr. and Mrs. Smith that have over 50% equity in their property, in a property in Elgin, and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I know there's a foreclosure in process. The property is going to auction within the next 30 days or so. How about if we can help you clear the entire amount of debt? And I would be willing to buy the property. Think about it, right? The property is going to end up at auction. What if they could get maybe $10,000, $15,000 from you? You end up buying a phenomenal deal with a ton of equity in the property. And what this tool does, I think the internet is acting a bit slow here. Okay, let me try this. Just bear with me. I want to kind of demonstrate what this can do, but of course, internet is going to act up. So what this will do is it will give you this automatically when you click here. I think my internet is honking out. Will automatically run out and do a search, which is called a skip trace search. What does that mean? So think about this. If a court wants to deliver a notice to you and you do not want to be found, they will hire a detective that's going to do a skip trace on you. What does that skip trace mean? It simply means exactly what the name says. You're trying to skip out, but they're going to trace you down. In today's era of the internet and no information being, secret, what happens is all our information is out there in kind of on the web. It's out there. And what the system does is it goes out, does an inquiry of your name, whatever name it's asking to be searched, and it will pull out any relevant information about that particular person, and boom, it'll give you their phone number, it'll give you their address, it'll give you every single thing at the click of a button right at your fingertips. So let's see, hopefully this will work. There we go. So this one, they did not have any specific information about this person. And sometimes we've gotten a call that, Andrew, I couldn't get information about this person. Now you have their attorney information, you have the information of where they live, you have the possible known addresses where they are. So what you can do is you can reach out to these people before the property goes to auction. And why is this important? So if I look at this property, let's just say I'm going to look at this property on Briarwood in Elgin. Going on. Try this one. Okay, we tried the Burridge. Okay, So let's just say it's the Burridge property, right? In this case, the balance due on this property is $321, and the original loan was $433. Can you? Is it possible that this property is worth way more than what the original loan is? If you look at the estimate, the ARV that's given over here, this property possibly, now mind you, this is going to be a guesstimate. This is going to be kind of like what Zillow does, which is they're taking a comparables in this area to give you a value based on the square footage and the comparable homes. So this says the property is worth somewhere around maybe $1.1 million to $1.3 million. What if the property is only worth $800,000? Guess what? You just found a property that has huge amount of equity in this particular property. And this is before it goes to auction. Could you make a deal with the homeowner? Here's the beauty of this. The beauty of this is this. See, you don't have to worry about buying the property without seeing the property, because when you talk to the homeowner, you make an appointment, you get to go see the property. Secondly, you can finance the property. You don't have to pay all cash for the property. You can finance the property. You can take 30 days, 40 days, because here's the secret of this. As long as the homeowner in Burridge or the homeowner in Elgin, as long as they have a valid bona fide buyer, that means somebody who is willing and able to buy the property. Now, you say, well, Andrew, I don't have the cash to buy the property. Well, why would you pay cash if you could just put financing on the property, right? So if you can put financing on the property, why not? You can go to One Lawyer, you can go to Chicago Funding, you can go to a lot of different sources, and they'll be more than happy to do a loan on this property for you. See, it's a win-win situation. Imagine this, that you buy the property for, I'll give a perfect example. Yesterday, actually, I showed an example of somebody that happens to have a property in Morton Grove, and the loan on that property is about $170,000, excuse me. On top of that, there's some back taxes that are owed that are another $70,000. So 170 plus 70. So that's close to $240,000 that are owed. And this property is going to auction next week. And guess what happened? The homeowners panicked, and suddenly, because we got to them before the property ended up at auction, they're like, oh my God, we have to do something now. I'm like, guys, all this time, when you had all this time, you didn't do anything. They're like, yeah, we were scared, but now we realize it's going to go to auction in a week, and oh my God, we need to do something. So what I did was I went and looked up, what is that property worth? So when I looked up the property, so Morton Grove, the property all day long is worth somewhere around $500,000. I'm being extremely conservative. And think about it. I can pick up the property for $240,000 approximately is what I can get the property for, right? Now, do I care if the homeowner makes $20,000, $30,000? No, God bless. You know, why not give him a little bit money? He's happy. He gets some money to move out, because guess what's going to happen at the auction? See, if the property goes to auction, any person who's a savvy investor, they're going to look at the property and go, oh my God, the property is worth $500,000, and the loan balance, the loan owed is only $240,000, right? Including the back taxes and everything. Yet everybody shows up at auction. 30 people, 40 people show up. And guess what? Everybody wants the property. What happens? The price doesn't go down, the price goes up, right? And people will bid $250, $280, $300, $320, $350. You know, pretty much suddenly you realize, oh my God, there's no room left in a phenomenally good property. So the secret to real estate is you make money when you buy. So the thing that what most people end up doing, why do people lose money in real estate? It's three reasons, and it's three important reasons. A lot of times people think it's just the rehab. It's never just the rehab. It's three things have to go wrong for you to make money on a flip in real estate. Number one, you paid too much when you bought the property. Number two, your rehab went over, which always is going to go over, right? There's no such thing as you plan for a $30,000 rehab and it got done for 20. It doesn't work that way, right? And then the third, that you sell the property for less than what you thought you were going to sell it for. Those are the three cardinal rules of flipping that, and most people, unfortunately, happen to mess up all three for them to lose money. And here what it does is this. The secret to the auctions is catch them before everybody else gets them. And you want to catch the ones that have the most amount of equity first, right? We showed you, why did we do this filter? Because if I don't have this filter and I just do a search, it's going to give me a couple thousand properties that are going to show up, about 2,500 or 2,800, as we saw properties that are going to go to auction. There we go, 2,500 properties that are going to go to auction, but yet a lot of them will be properties that are upside down. Can you make money with them before they go to auction? Yes, 100%. You can do a short sales, but why not go for the meatier, bigger deals? Yesterday at the office with Juan, we were talking about the property which we picked up. We picked up this property for a for a 4-flat in Little Village. We paid $140,000. On top of that, we paid the homeowners another $20,000 or so on top of that. So think about it. Your all-in cost for a 4-unit brick building is about $160,000. And that property in that area fixed up, it needs about $80,000 or so in work, right? So in $80,000 or so in work, and the property's worth about $430,000, $440,000 in today's market. So guess what we're doing? We're not even doing the work on the property. We're putting it back in the MLS. We're going to put it on the MLS for the first time for about $335,000. Think about that. Are you going to find those types of properties, those types of opportunities in the MLS? No. Because why? Because the reason why it's so critical to have access to something like this is because, number one, 99.9999% of the investors don't have access to this, right? And secondly, people who have this data, they have to sort through thousands and thousands and thousands of files to find the ones that make any sense. Imagine having to go through 31,000 files to be able to get it down to about 250 or so that have the most amount of equity, that have the most meat on that particular bone. And that becomes really important to understand. So that's the number one opportunity that you can take advantage of, which is even if you want to wholesale the property, or if you want to do a fix and flip, or if you want to make it into a rental property, right? Any of those options will work with this. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to compete with other investors like us. So we buy properties in the MLS, we buy properties at auction, and we buy properties that are off market. And guess which are the ones that are the most profitable? The ones that are the most profitable are these deals, are the deals that come from these lists. And the reason people think there's a secret in real estate, guys, the secret in real estate is simple. Be early compared to anybody else, to get to the worm. It's that simple. When everybody's buying the MLS, you should be buying the auctions. When everybody's buying the auctions and the MLS, you should be buying off market. If you are one pace ahead of the crowd, guess what happens? You have a leading edge, and the leading edge is what gives you a strategic advantage. So in practical life, Juan, why don't we pull up your property, and I think that the visual part of it will make sense. The property that you bought at auction, and it'll be a good illustration of it.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's the address of the property?
The single family or the 2-flat?
Let's do the 2-flat.
2-flat is 6549 South Keeler, Keeler, in Chicago.
So let me see there we go. So this is the property, right?
Correct.
Okay. So look at this property. So this property, what did you buy this property for?
So I bought it at the auction, all in with my fees at $176.
$76,000 is what you paid.
176. 176.
Sorry, I was going to say, man, for 2-flat. 176.
I'm good, but not that good.
Yeah. So you paid $176 for the property, and then as far as, so you paid 176 for the property, and then you had a little bit of a hiccup, right? And this happens whenever you buy a property. So we had done the title check for him, which was the most important thing. And if you guys are on the call today, this is something important, so write this down. Make sure if you guys are on the call and if you're registered to go to the 3-day event. And we gave out that coupon yesterday to, I think, 8 or 10 people. And so today we'll give out the same exact coupon, which is that if you want to buy properties at sheriff's sale, and we will do the title check for you for free. And this is just, the reason we're doing this is because Hugo asked me that this would be a huge help to people that want to buy properties, something like what Juan did, right? You need to have cash, but it is a tremendous way to buy properties. So we did the title check for him, but he knew going in that maybe the property may be occupied. So what happened in that particular case? And I'll talk about how you get, if you're registered for the 3-day, we will give you that coupon. So anytime before you bid, you can just let us know and we will do the title search for you so that you don't make any mistakes whenever you're buying the property. So what happened with that property?
So the property went to auction, I believe, somewhere in about November. And, once, learning to go through the process, we won the bid, and then there's a certain amount of time that they have for the redemption period. So we were issued the deed about 30 days later. At that point, we went and we knocked on the door and says, hey, great news, we're the new owners, and I'm sorry, but we're going to renovate the property. You guys have to leave so that we can get this done. And at that point, we came to realize that when we received the sheriff's deed, in that sheriff's deed, there is it's kind of like the eviction is already built into that deed, that whoever was on the mortgage is named in that eviction and they have to leave. Well, this happens to be a multi-unit building, and bottom line is there were renters in that property that were not listed on the mortgage, so I couldn't just tell them to leave. I now had to figure out who was living there so I could go back to court and proceed with the eviction process. So we ended up striking up. It was easier for us just to talk to the tenants, to the people, and say, oh, let us give you some money to relocate, and we basically gave them some money in a cash for keys type of solution. So, but again, we learned for our purposes is when you're buying multi-units, it gets a little bit more complicated because you might have to evict the tenants, not just evict the previous owners.
So you bought the property for 176, you said?
Correct.
Okay. So let's just make it 180 for today's purposes.
Correct.
It'll be easier, right? $180,000 approximately, with the purchase, with the rehab, paying the people that were living there to get out, basically cash for keys, all that stuff. Everything said and done, what did you spend for rehab?
We spent approximately $40,000. If you figure our holding costs, we'll call it $50,000 total.
Okay.
So 180 to buy it plus 50. So we were in at about $230,000 all in.
Okay, so you were in that property for $230,000. Now here's the kicker.
Correct.
Remember what Juan said when we started. He said on a rental property, he's looking for certain criteria. See, it's not most people will buy a rental property. They're like, oh my God, I got a rental. Guys, that's not what is called investing. Investing means you're buying something that is of much greater value after you fix it up. Not only does it make you money every single month, but it also has a tremendous amount of equity and your debt coverage ratio, which is once you buy the property, that the bank has to keep liking you and keep giving you loan after loan after loan. So number one, your all-in cost in that property is
approximately $230,000.
$230,000. What was that appraisal on the property?
So the property appraised once it was done for $330,000.
$330,000. Think about that. That's right there, right off the top. You have a ton of equity, $80,000, $90,000 in equity in that particular property all day long. Now, the second question would be is, how much does it cash flow after all your expenses are paid? Interest, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, mortgage, everything.
Sure. So that property, we've got total rentals. So I rented the first floor and basement for $1,800 for the duplex. And then I've got the second floor is rented at $1,150. So I've got $2,950 in rent coming in. And we refinanced, so it appraised for $330. We financed 75%, so we were able to get a mortgage on that for $247,000. So we actually were able to get all of our money plus a little bit extra that we put in the bank just for additional reserves. My total payment on that property is about $1,700, including taxes and insurance, and my total rents are $2,950. So gross margin. I've got about $1,200 in gross margin.
Okay, about $1,200 you make every single month, right? So think about that example, right? So that's strategy number one. Strategy number one is that if you're somebody like Juan, if you are going to the 3-day, let us do the search for you, and then guess what happens? That now you already have your title search done. Now you're safe to bid on it. So here's an example of it. So I pulled up, what are the properties that are coming up for auction, right? Between day after tomorrow and up to the 18th, right? Show me those. Boom! At the click of a button, it gave me 263 houses. See, you don't have to go through thousands of records. Boom! What the difference between somebody who is a novice and the difference between a seasoned investor is a novice spends almost 99% of their time doing things that are unproductive. Now, they don't do it on purpose. They just don't know that those things are unproductive. A seasoned investor knows exactly how to identify the 1% to 2% of things in real estate that actually make money. People like Juan, people like us, that's the biggest difference, that a lot of times the frustration in real estate is caused not because deals don't exist. Frustration in real estate is caused because people don't know how to find them. And that's the biggest key to take away. So the first thing I would do if I could buy properties at auction is I would look up what are properties that are coming up. Like I see something that's, Bowling, this property, Lansing property we would buy, Romeoville, Bolingbrook, Orland Hills, Carpentersville, Schaumburg. These are a bunch of properties that come up. And now are all of them going to come up? No. A lot of them are not going to come up, but some of them will come up. And the ones that do come up, then we want to know, are there any ones that are even better? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to see out of these 263 properties, can I find anything that maybe I'm interested in that will have a ton of equity? Boom, there we go, 26 houses, right? 26 houses that have a ton of equity. So the Romeoville property we're talking about, that's at the top of the list, right? That's the property. Look at this. The loan balance on this is $111,000. The Zestimate on this is $243,000. So this is a property, if I could do something on this, now even though it's coming up really, really soon, but I would be interested in this property. If I could make something work on this property, I would definitely be interested in the property. Why? Because this is a property which I know could work if I could pick it up. It may work for a rental, or it may also work for a flip. So I'm just kind of showing you guys for illustration purposes that you don't need to, there we go. That's the property. See, the tool that is available here, what it does is it helps you save time. I mean, this kind of a thing to open 9 different websites to be able to get all that stuff. And now you go in, you put all your numbers, and boom, it'll update your net calculations for you. Boom, you made a decision. Is this something that you're interested in? If not, you just move on with life. So the way we would use this is we would go there, we would figure out what are the properties that we're going to plan on bidding on. And then before that, can I intercept them before it gets to auction? Are there any loan balances that are on the lower side of things? So there's another one. Here's a property, which happens to be, this looks like that it's a condo, but it's a condo or a townhouse in Elgin. $44,000 owed. The estimate on the property is $130,000. Guys, if you can pick up the property anywhere around that $50,000, $55,000, $60,000 mark, probably, I haven't done research here, but probably it'll be something that may make sense for a rental. Now, you just have to check whether they do allow rentals. This is something that if they do allow the rentals, I would definitely be interested in. Here's another one on locks in Aurora. The point what I'm making is this. When you think about auctions, don't just think about going to a sheriff's sale and buying the property. You have to realize that there's a tremendous, tremendous amount of, even before you get to the auction. So another thing I want to kind of point out is this. So that's, and for those of you, most of you, I hope you already have access to Hugo's software. If you don't have access to it, if you're registered to go to the 3-day, the cost is about $67 for all 3 days. Hugo will give you the access 100% free. The reason we give you access, both I, Hugo, as well as Juan, we have a little bit of a personal interest here, right? More than what it costs to, so Hugo charges, if you're going to pay for and subscribe to this whole thing, he charges, I think, about $140 a month. That's not where the most money is made for Hugo. For Juan, for me, for Hugo, we're all interested in buying great properties. The reason we make all these tools available to you, if you find properties and you can't keep them or you don't know what to do with it, trust me, if you pick up the phone, you use the tool, you pick up the phone and you call Juan, you call Chicago RIA and reach me, or you call Hugo and say, oh my God, Juan, I got a great deal by Midway. Believe me, Juan is going to come running, because why?
I got a fistful of dollars, I will buy it.
Right. So just understand, a lot of times people are like, well, why would you make the secrets available? Here's why we make the secrets available. Because there's 31,000 of them in pre-foreclosures. There is 18,000 of them in probate. There is another 2,500 of them in pre-auction properties, right? There is so many leads that are available that none of us can ever effectively work them, period. Doesn't matter what we do. It's impossible, and hence we make it available. So now let's go to the second part of it. Remember what I said early on is that it's even you buy the property before it goes to the sheriff's sale. That's one strategy. And that's a huge strategy. There's a tremendous amount of properties, as we said, pre-foreclosures right now. There are 31,000 properties that are pre-foreclosures that are going to auction. Here's another thing that are going in pre-foreclosure, excuse me. Another cool thing to look at is, and these are not auctions, but this is just another cool thing. Watch the number, 30,900 properties. If I did an equity search of properties that have 50% or more equity, what it's going to give me is it's going to give me about 10% or so properties, about 3,100 properties that have 50% or more equity. Guys, the only difference between this one and the auction list is that the auction list are properties that are going to go to auction in the next 45 days. This list has all the properties that are going to go to the auction either in the next 45 days, 60 days, 180 days, a year, or 2 years, right? This is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous tool that you can learn how to use. So now let's talk about the second piece, which is the REO properties, or properties that are short sales that are after the auction has already taken place. So to find those, you can go to, now there is 4 or 5 major websites that you can buy these properties from. First one is going to be auction.com. Actually, first one is going to be Hubzu, H-U-B-Z-U, Hubzu. Second one is going to be auction.com. Third one is going to be Xome, X-O-M-E. So instead of a home, H-O-M-E, it's called X-O-M-E. That's the third most popular website. The fourth one is going to be realtybid.com. The fifth one is going to be hudsonandmarshall.com. And the sixth one is going to be, and I'm drawing a blank, Williams and Williams, I believe. Williams and Williams has a website. So those are the major ones. There are some small ones here or there, but these are the major players in the marketplace. So this is the other type of auctions that you can buy properties at. So let's just say I'm going to go to Exome for a second, and I'll show you guys how I would do a search and how you should look at it. Now, there are some nuances with these websites. The websites are not a fair playing field. Understand who they're representing. Their job is to represent the bank. They're not looking out for your best interest. So please know that for sure. I mean, you can moan and complain about it. That's just how it is. So as long as you know that, then you know how to deal with these, right? And then if you go to, let's do search auctions. And if we do, I'm going to do bank-owned auctions here. So I'm going to go to bank-owned properties. And then in bank-owned properties, it's going to give me tons and tons of properties. So I'm going to basically put, let's just put Chicago, just to kind of get it down. And I'm going to go only for residential properties. Now, obviously, it helps if you can narrow down your areas, because otherwise what happens is, unless you know what areas you're going to invest in, it's going to give you a lot of areas. Like you look at something like this, what a stunning looking building. Now, the problem is, if you don't know where this area is, guess what? It means nothing, because bank-owned property starting bid at $67,000, right? And they say here they have a reserve price of $113,000. What that means is that if you pay $113,000 this second, boom, the property is yours, right? And then the bank will basically most likely sign off on the property. This is what it says. Now, this one also says no trespassing, do not disturb occupants. Guys, I don't care what it says here, right? You should always go and check. If you go and knock on the door and say hello, that's not disturbing a occupant. Don't go trespassing through their yard if you see people are living there. Don't be obnoxious and rude, but you can always go and knock on the door and just say hello. And they say, well, how can I help you? If you get scared, oh my God, I think I came to the wrong house. Leave, right? Now at least you know that there is somebody living there. But there's nothing wrong with just going knocking on the door. What you can't be doing is trespassing on other properties, just common sense stuff, right? What they're saying is that supposedly the property is occupied. But just because they say that the property is occupied does not mean that the property is occupied, right? So that's important.
I am not finished yet. Oh.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, guys,
Hello?
can you, yeah, Miss Bella, I'm going to mute you. Okay, so the other thing what you have to think about whenever you're looking at these properties, and please read these details carefully. Upcoming auction, blah, blah, blah. No buyer's premium. Whenever, and this is not always a rule of thumb, but whenever it says no buyer's premium, there is a reason why they're not charging you, because they're going to put in all the fees they can, right? They put in a 2% fee as a buyer's premium, all this kind of stuff. The reason that they don't do that most of the time is because they have been either unable to sell the property in the past, or there may be some issues that may exist. Now, that's not all bad. There's nothing, you can't just get alarmed and go, oh my God, it's a bad property. It's not, doesn't mean that it's a bad property, right? But it says cash-only transaction due to lack of access. Now, in this case, they're clearly saying that, but I would still want to go and verify if there is access to the property or not, if the people are living there or not. And then what I want to also find out is that, so it says a $500 credit will be applied towards closing costs on cash transactions where the purchaser elects to use seller's title company. Excuse me. So what they're saying is here that they're going to offer you title, because this is a property that is owned by the bank. So they're going to offer you title. Now, my question is this to you, and this is something to think about. Think about it if you're buying the property in Chicago, right? You need to get a water cert. If the people are living in the property and they are going to give you a regular deed, they can't do that because they cannot give you a water certificate on a property like this. So what they're going to end up probably doing in most cases is give you a quit claim deed. Now, what if you're stuck with a huge bill with Chicago? What if there's a bunch of violations? What if there are a bunch of issues with the city or the village against the property? You need to file, especially on a property like this, where you know the auction is going to come up. You want to bid on the property ahead of time. You have time here. What I would do is I would go to the Chicago portal. So Chicago is easy in this way, and it's actually convenient in this way. You can go look up any fines, any type of violations that the property has. Just put Chicago fines and violations. You'll find it on Google in 2 seconds, right? And you can just go and pop in the address, and boom, that will come up. And please make sure when you are buying this property, when you're bidding on this property, that there may not be any violations, but from the time that you bid to the time that you actually have a closing, if the violations show up, this is an auction. Mind you, you can't go back to the seller and say, oh my God, now there's violations, so I'm not going to buy the property. Guess what? They're not going to let you get out of that deal. So you need to keep those important details in mind. The other thing is that with these auction properties, what happens is, in this case, it says the auction starts in 2 days and 12 hours. Do not put a bid in here at all. Even if you know you can pay $100,000 for the property, don't put in any bid. Always bid at these auctions in the last 5 minutes and wait till the last about 3 minutes or 2 minutes to bid. And then, because you'll start seeing that this number will start jumping. This number could be 0. This number could be 10,000. It means nothing. It absolutely means nothing. The one indicator, whenever there's no reserve price given, and do not bid based on the reserve price, because the bank is the seller. In this case, their job is to ask for as much as they humanly can. They're not looking out for you, they're looking out for themselves. This is important to keep in mind, because people don't pay attention sometimes to this, and they say, well, it says the reserve price, so I'm going to go ahead and pay the reserve price. Seems like a good deal. That's something you need to do your homework for, to make sure that it actually is a good deal. So whenever, also another thing that happens with these auctions, with the online auctions, is that the banks have something called a proxy bidder. What does a proxy bidder mean? A proxy bidder means that they have somebody nominated that is going to put a bid on behalf of the bank. Now, does that mean that that's an actual bidder that is honestly going to buy the property? No, it's just called a proxy bidder. What the proxy bidder's job is to basically keep increasing the price on you and keep making you pay more. So this happens to people all the time. They'll put in a bid for $85,000. Somebody else puts in 87, 88, 89. And you think that there's an actual bidder. There is no bidder, right? So always assume whenever you're bidding on any of these platforms, if you're bidding on auction.com, if you're bidding on Exo, on any of these platforms, that there is a artificial bidder that is bidding against you. So what the banks are notorious for doing on these properties is that, let's say you set your maximum bid, I'm going to go to 85,000 and no higher. That's the way to bid on it. Put your 85,000 bid in, and make sure if it's bidding around 70, 75, 80, 85, you start getting it to 82, 83, immediately put your 85 bid in and then stop. Don't worry about what the bid goes to, because it'll show, the screen will start blinking and you'll be tempted to go higher. Do not do it. Because what's going to happen is they're going to show, oh, auction is closing out, the auction closes out. Well, unfortunately, we're so sorry you didn't win the auction. And guess what's going to happen within a day or two? If you're anywhere within reason of a reasonable price, not the price that is indicated here. This price is just arbitrary. Don't worry about that price. If it's anywhere within reason, you're going to get a call from auction.com and Exome, and the conversation will go something like, well, you know, the other bidder that won the bid, they really can't buy the property, so do you still want the property? And if you're still interested in the property, that's fine. You can buy the property, but just make sure don't get talked into paying higher amounts for the property. So make sure you stick to your guns and don't go higher. If you want to negotiate a couple thousand here or there, because they're going to typically come back, if your bid is at 80, they're going to say, well, the seller, our client says they'll sell it to you for 95. Do not take that bait. Just stick to your price or say, well, my max bid is 82 because the area doesn't comp out. If you can give them some reasonable comps within that area, a lot of times they can go back to the client, and a lot of times we've been very successful in showing them, hey, listen, I'm paying a fair price for the property. I can't pay more for this property. It doesn't make sense. And what will happen is they may say no at that time, but they'll re-put the property back on the market again. I mean, literally, we have bought properties that I've bid on 8, 9, 10 times, lost the auction every single time. And guess what? What they're doing is they're playing games. They're trying to get people to get in the frenzy of bidding and bid higher, right? So this is really important to pay attention with these particular websites. This does not happen with sheriff sales. Sheriff sales are final, one and done. This is with these websites where they play a lot of games. Now, some people get very discouraged because of that, but just understand that's just how the game is played. So if you become good at it, you can find a lot of awesome and really, really, really good deals. And what happens is when you bid on these websites, what's going to happen is something like auction.com, they're going to ask you for a credit card. When you put your credit card, they're going to put a hold for $1,500. It says when you want to add a property, it'll immediately pop up a screen called put your credit card. So add all the properties that you want. So if let's say you're going to bid on 4 properties, right? Put all of them in your bucket, in your cart first, and then give them the credit card, because if you give them the credit card per property, then they're going to put $1,500 a block on your credit card. So there may be a $6,000 block on your credit card, right? If you have a huge limit, it doesn't matter. Some people who don't, it may matter to them. And they're not taking your money at that point. They're just blocking that account. It's just a temporary block for that amount of money. Now, let's say you bid and you win the bid. At that point, what's going to happen is it's going to start flashing green, and you say, oh, you're the final bidder, you're the winner of the auction, and you'll get an email immediately, congratulations. Within a couple of hours, typically, you will get a call from them. So watch out for that call. At that time, they're going to tell you, well, you won the auction, we're going to send you a contract. So at that point, don't start jumping for joy, because it really doesn't mean a whole lot at that point. All it means is that you have potentially won the property. You've won here, but still the bank has the right of first refusal on the property. So what they're going to do is they're going to send you a contract. At that point, you're going to fill out the contract, and they're going to ask you for earnest money. It's about 5% typically of the bid amount. And then once you send your earnest money in, at that point, they will release the hold from your credit card. So now your credit card is no longer on hold. They have the earnest money from you, and that's all they need at that point. Then they're going to take that contract and send it to the bank. And at that point, the bank is going to make a decision whether they're going to sell you the property or not. At that point, you have not won the auction yet. It's going to be about, they say it takes about 2 weeks. Typically, it does not take that long. In about 5, 6 days, 8 days, you'll hear back from them. Well, the bank decided to accept your bid, or the bank may come back, reject the bid, or they may come back with a counter offer. This is all a game. Just understand that that's just how it is. So they may just flat out reject your bid, and then they'll wire you your money back. They're not going to keep your money. But be careful of one thing. If you do bid on a property and then you just change your mind, they have the right to keep the credit card hold, and they will run your credit card at that point, and you're going to lose your $1,500 or whatever you put up to bid on that property. So I know it's a lot of information to take in over a webinar. We are recording it, and I think Hugo will make it available for everybody. So anything else that you want to touch on, Juan or Hugo?
So, Andrew, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, as you said, it's a ton of information to digest on a webinar. What I can tell you is, one of again, as you like to say, but Andrew, you don't understand. I can't find any great deals out there. It's kind of what I hear from people, and I said that's not possible. You know, the tools, the technology that Hugo has put together for us is absolutely tremendous. You know, again, it's I use the DealVault to really help me eliminate the 99% of the properties that I have no interest in, just so that I can spend my time focusing on the ones that might be of interest to me. And, you know, again, so for everything that Hugo has put together with the DealVault, I thank him for that. And everything that you and Chicago REIA have put together and taught me, I'd like to thank you for that as well. Definitely, you've changed my ability to be a real estate investor. So I'm excited to be part of the group and to be able to give back in the little bit that I do and being able to share my experience. So thank you.
So I want to kind of really quickly, as we wrap up, I want to show you guys an example. So this is a property on Lorenz, 17257 on Lorenz. We bought today, right? This is a perfect example. This is, I mean, literally the auction happened today at Cook County, right? And guess what? We had already, because we had identified the property ahead of time. Now the property, the mortgage owed on the property was $96,000. Think about it. The property on the back end when we mean is after the property is fixed up, is worth about $120,000 or so. It's not part of Lansing, maybe 125, right? And we know it's worth that. So the homeowner was unwilling to negotiate with us, but whenever I went, I knew ahead of time it was coming. So we went, knocked on their door and said, hey, would you like to do a short sale? They're like, no, we're not going to do anything. And then guess what? Last night, he calls me. He's like, Andrew, we like what you had to say, but we really weren't willing to cooperate. Can you buy it now? I'm like, well, guys, you're calling me after 8 o'clock at night, even with the emergency hearing. I don't think I'm going to be able to stop it in the morning. And it was just too tight. So 10:30 at the auction today. Now, here was the sweet part about it. Because he called me, right, after the REIA meeting yesterday, I went out looking. I mean, we did the meeting, right, in the office. We ended 9:30, 10 o'clock. I literally went and looked at the property 10:45 at night. Now, guess what? I had an intrinsic advantage over anybody else that was bidding at the auction. Why? Because I know the people. They're willing to work with me. I've seen the inside of the property. And boom, today we bought this property at the auction, $67,000. And the property inside is in tremendously perfect condition. I believe, I wonder if I have, let me see if I can show you guys the picture of the property. I mean, it's in tremendous condition. And the advantage is this. The cool part about all these tools, all the information that we put out is that this information, there's a ton of deals. The problem is most people don't know. Here we go. This is the house, right? It looks exactly like that. Nice brick and stone ranch, and just a beautiful, beautiful property, right? And once you learn how to use all these tools, utilize these tools, and especially before we go to the 3-day, we make these tools available because at the end of the day, guys, we want properties. A lot of times we end up with a lot of great deals because what happens is people will bumble into some phenomenally good properties, and a lot of times we will miss them because we just can't get to everything. And we're happy to buy the property from you all day long. Just today we closed on a property which we bought from another investor, and this is his first wholesale, and $16,000 we paid out on a wholesale fee to the investor, and we're happy to do it. Why? Because it's a win-win. It's a win-win for us. He didn't know what to do with it. He didn't have the funds to close. And guess what? It ended up being a great property. Somebody actually from Mastery bought the property. And this is a property that someone like Juan Loya, someone like Hugo themselves would all day long take a property like this. And it makes sense. So Hugo, I don't know if you're here or not. What I did say was, you're here? Okay. So anybody, for those of you guys that are not registered for the 3-day, the info is here. It's $67 to register for the 3-day. That's coming up on October 4th, 5th, and 6th. The information that we kind of shared was just a tiny piece of how you find properties, where you find them. So on Friday, the entire focus at the 3-day is purely going to be, we'll start with how do you set up a real estate business? And we'll talk about 3 different types of businesses. One is a wholesaling business. What do you need to meet all the legal requirements? How do you set it up? How do you do all the, LLC setup, all that kind of setup? Then we'll talk about if you want to do flips. How do you set up that business and how do you line up the funding for those? And then we'll talk about the rental properties. We'll start there. And then we'll start getting into how do you find properties? Where do you find properties? Once you've found it, how do you do the evaluation, whether it makes sense for wholesaling, whether it makes sense for flipping? And then how do I get the property under contract so that I have both options open? I can flip the property, I can keep it for myself, or I can wholesale the property. How do I keep all those options open? And then once Gary comes a little bit later in the evening, he'll go through how do you actually do the closing and how do you actually get paid, because that's the most important thing, especially if you are going to do wholesale. So make sure you attend that session. As far on Saturday, we start about half an hour earlier. So we start about 8:30, and everybody gets to get on a bus. So we have about 8 school buses that we order, and you actually go and look at the properties, because some of the examples we're talking about, these are live deals. These are not case studies that are hypotheticals. What we want you to do is touch, feel, and see that, because now it becomes a hands-on training for you, so that everything we talked about on Friday, we can start talking about application on Saturday. You're going to get to see some wholesales, some flips, as well as some rental properties. And then that day, the focus is going to be on building a flipping business. If you want to do 5, 6, 7, 8 flips this year, how do you do that? How do you actually build a business around that? And then on day 2 in the evening, we have a special session. This is probably the day 1 session, day 2 session of the most popular things at the 3-day, which are the VIP sessions, where if you have any properties, or in the audience, people always have a bunch of properties that they're like, oh, okay, let's evaluate this. What should I pay for XYZ? You don't have to give us the address, but you can certainly give us the numbers, and we're happy to run those numbers. If you can understand what these numbers are, believe me, that is the secret. The secret to Juan's business is understanding, number 1 is area selection. Number 2 is understanding the numbers, and then lining up the financing. If you can understand those 3 pieces, guess what? Now you become successful in real estate. And the 3rd day, it's going to be about what we call rapid fire portfolio building, which is the 2-5-7 formula. 2 years, 5 houses, and get them all paid off in 7 years or less. Again, that's 2 years, 5 houses, get them paid off in 7. And in Mastery, like, we have so many people like Juan. I think what Juan says, he's at 12 properties in 12 months. He's actually at 15 units in 12 months. And then I think he has 5 or 6 or 8 properties under contract on top of that. And Hugo, I think in Hugo, 2.5 years, Hugo and his wife have 24 deals done in 2.5 years. And we have tons and tons of hundreds of examples of people who have learned that formula, which is how do I buy it? How do I rehab it? How do I refinance all my money out and do it over again and build scale? So for anybody that registers today or that registered yesterday, we will do the title search for you for any auction property, so that you can buy the properties with peace of mind. So you don't have to worry about, oh my God, what if there's a problem with the property? That we will do that for you, so that your risk is covered. We obviously have a ton of speakers that will come and speak at the 3-day. If people haven't registered for it, Hugo, how do they register?
Okay, so the way to register is to go to ChicagoDealVault. I can share my screen, Andrew. Can you allow me to be the host?
Yeah.
or you can go
Let me
to
go.
ChicagoDealVault, but you can share. Let me share screen.
Let me see where I put that. It should be right here somewhere. Where did that thing go?
It's on top.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
So I go to remote, no, not remote access. I just allow you to share your screen.
Yes, to make me the host.
Okay, and Hugo, where are you?
I'm the first one.
1 second. Okay, you're here, right? And make a host. There we go.
Yes. Still not able to. Sure.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, that'd be great. If you can please go to ChicagoDealVault.com. So,
Okay.
friends, I know 30 days, we're going to give you 30 days for free of ChicagoDealVault. Okay, so you can click on sign up, and that's going to take, or you can scroll down, and then higher up, a little bit higher up, and then they'll be able to see the tickets for the 3 days.
Oh, here.
Oh, right there. Right here.
Right.
Perfect.
So all you have to do is go ahead.
Okay, so you can roll down and then pick the basic or the VIP ticket. And then click on the blue button that says Get Started.
Okay.
Now the difference is that for B friends, lunch is included in all 3 days on top of the VIPs. So if you can just click on Buy Now, Andrew. The blue button.
So if you click here,
exactly.
There we go.
Exactly.
Okay. So basically, all you have to do is
basic information.
There's a lot of echo coming from your end, Hugo. So all you have to do, guys, is that if you aren't registered, you get access to the entire system that I showed you from Hugo, and we'll give you a coupon for your title search on any of the properties that you want to go after. And to get that is you go to the website, which is ChicagoDealVault.com. That's ChicagoDealVault.com. And then you go to sign up. And when you scroll down, you'll see basic 3-day tickets or the VIP package. And the difference between the two is that with the VIP, you get lunches all 3 days, as well as you also get to come to the VIP sessions in the evening. And with the lunches, with all the speakers like the Frank Montreux, Ryan Smith, all the speakers that we invite, you get to talk to them one-on-one. You get to spend time with them, network with them, grab their business card, because that's what the whole point of this is, that you want to take not only just information, but you want to take the associations and connections away from the 3 days. So make sure you have access. And tomorrow, when you register today, tomorrow, somebody from Hugo's team is going to reach out to you guys. Make sure you guys log into the portal. You'll get a login, and it's 100% free for you to use. And make sure there are training modules and videos that you please watch these and go through this, because there's a lot of information on here. There's all these things, which is probate list, foreclosure list, upcoming auctions, all this stuff. On top of that, there are cash buyers lists. Like, a lot of people struggle finding cash buyers. So there's a cash buyers list where you can find about close to 60,000 cash buyers by each city, by each zip code, by each area that have bought properties within the Chicagoland area. think about how productive it could be if you can find the property, let's say in Berwyn, and then find all the buyers that have bought properties within the Berwyn and the Cicero area within the last year and a half. So if I go, let's say, to Cook County, and I put Berwyn over here, for example, what it's going to do is it's going to put here, and I put search, and it's going to populate all the people. There are 184 people that paid cash for properties just in Berwyn. Now you can market your deal to those buyers, and guess most of these cash buyers, 99.9% of them, are used to buying properties from the MLS. They're already used to paying higher prices. So you have a strategic advantage. So please make sure that you register so that you can get access to all of this. And all you have to do is go to ChicagoDealVault, then go to sign up, and then scroll down, and you'll get the info. Anything else, Hugo? I know we went long today.
Yeah, no, it's perfect, Andrew. So thank you very much for the great information you shared today. Thank you, Juan, for sharing your success story. That was amazing. We all learned a lot. And friends, please do not miss this opportunity. Sign up today, and we're going to give you 30 days for free of Chicago Deal Vault when you buy either the basic or the VIP. In addition to that, we'll send you the promo code to do the title search for you on any auction property that you are interested in pursuing. And then not only that, but we are going to train you one-on-one via webinar on how to utilize Chicago Deal Vault and build an empire rental portfolio. So I'm going to remain on the line to help people get sign up for any questions.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much.
I'm
going to stay on the line.
You're very welcome.
I'll just unmute everybody. That way people can basically ask any questions if they have.
Hey, Hugo, just real quick. On a side note, you just need to update the landing page with the dates of the new 3 days.
I just saw it. It's October 4th, 5th, and 6th. So we'll update it. Thank you very much, Juan.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, guys, have a great night.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Juan. I'm going to stay on the line to get people sign up.
Okay.
Okay, friends. Something that I also want to mention, for the first 10 people who sign up tonight, we are going to assign you a dedicated virtual assistant to find deals for you. So we're committing to finding at least 2 to 5 deals a week, okay, that we're going to send in your inbox, off-market pre-foreclosure deals with high equity, okay? Not only that, we're going to send you the contact information of the owner. So this is a new program that we're launching. So only for the first people, 10 people who sign up tonight, you will have access to a dedicated virtual assistant from us, on top of the 30 days for free and the coupon to do a title search on an auction property. And all you need to do is sign up for the basic or the VIP package tonight. So I'm going to remain on the line for the next 5-10 minutes to help you get started. So again, you have to go to ChicagoDealVault.com and then click on the sign up and then scroll down to the page where you find the basic and the VIP package. And you will have immediate access to the system, to Chicago Deal Vault, and we'll send you a link for you to schedule your one-on-one training via webinar. Are there any questions on the line?
Hello, Hugo.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Bella. Go ahead.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I don't know how to sign in basic VIP section. And first, can you do that? And for me, because I use my phone, I don't know how I can do that. And second question, you know what is 3-day webinar. It is what is for? It's for you or someone? I quite don't understand. It's kind of. They're selling some $10,000 pay for is this golden program. That's the same program or is something else?
No. So what Andrew went over today, in this case, he just covered probably 5% of what he's going to cover in a 3-day event. So October 4th, which is a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 4th, 5th, and 6th, he's going to show you the formula to building a rental portfolio. He's going to show you, he's going to talk about wholesaling. He's going to take you in a bus to show you properties so that you can see the anatomy of the perfect rehab, right? He's going to take you in what markets. So it's just a learning experience that you're going to go through on that weekend.
Okay.
So the only difference is whether you want to sign up for the VIP or the basic. So the VIP includes 2 sessions, one with Gary Davidson, the attorney, and then on Saturday with Andrew and Rahul, deal or no deal analysis. On top of that, you get lunch all 3 days, which is great, right? Because you get to network with great real estate